Good afternoon. How are you today? Um, we are here with the 12th episode of our November, The Power of No. We're here on um, November 16th. So I said yesterday that this whole week we're going to talk about toxicity and different aspects of toxicity. So for today, what we're going to talk about is toxic relationships, because probably if you've heard of any kind of toxicity that doesn't just have to do with things you eat and drink and breathe, it's probably been toxic relationships. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit and how to say no and why we should and how maybe we should. So people can be toxic in a lot of ways, right? There's a bunch that we know and hear about, the most common, of course, being abuse, whether it's physical or emotional or mental abuse. But there's also rude things people say about us, or people who undermine our confidence by just questioning everything that we choose to do. Or maybe it's just people who aren't necessarily unkind, but they just don't get who we are. Health coach Denise Lissith says, like arsenic, toxic people will slowly kill you. They kill your positive spirit and play with your mind and your emotions. The only cure is to let them go. And we're going to talk about that and what extent we let people go in here in a few minutes. But I want to focus on another way, in other ways that people can be toxic that we don't often think about. And that's when friends or business partners or even relatives can be toxic because of how their bad habits influence us. So one of the classics for me is gossip. When people gossip, what tends to happen is we get caught up in gossiping around them. And so we begin to become like them, even if we don't think they are. Another would be complaining about your spouse or somebody else in particular. Your boss would be another one. And I realized this when Les and I, early in our marriage, we were friends with two other couples that we did a lot with. But I realized that whenever the women just hung around, this one woman constantly talked against her husband. A lot. And what ends up happening in that situation is we often also end up talking badly about our spouses, or if it's the boss, about our boss, because we're kind of drawn into that circle of conversation that isn't necessarily healthy for us. People's toxic behavior can also be things like overspending. If you shop with somebody who always spends a lot of money, more than their budget can handle, you're tempted to do the same. It doesn't seem so awful. It doesn't seem unwise because they're doing it. And look, they seem to be doing okay. The same goes for drinking too much, or a business associate who cheats on their taxes, or maybe has really poor work ethic. It's hard to go back to work when the other person's saying, don't worry about it. Just hang out here in their break room for an extra 15 minutes. Nobody will know the difference. It's hard to not become like the people we hang around with. You know, the Bible has a verse that says, bad company corrupts good morals. We can end up that person if we aren't careful. So one of the things I've realized with that is to listen to yourself talk, especially after that situation. How am I talking? Where's my mind going after spending time with this person? Is it going in a positive direction or a negative direction? And that can sometimes give us a clue. Because while we can't control someone else's negative behavior, and that's key, we cannot control it, we can control how long we participate in it. So if we're going to say no, if we recognize that somebody is toxic to us, how do we say no? Well, the first thing I want to say, and this is going to cover for all the other things we're going to talk about with this, is be kind. You are not a toddler. You are not allowed to throw a temper tantrum. Like, it's not who you are. So try to put that as the cover over everything, as the way you respond and react. Think first before you talk, and allow that to be the cover for things. The second thing I want to say is that if you choose to step back from somebody because you find the relationship toxic, you get to decide, do I explain this or don't I explain this? And I would say it depends on the depth of the relationship. So if I find hanging around with this acquaintance who I see occasionally to be toxic because, I don't know, they're gossiping all the time, I might just choose to drift away from that relationship. But that woman who I said was always down speaking badly about her husband, well, there were three of us that were really close. So I chose instead that because of that relationship, it would be hurtful not to speak out. And by speaking out, you can sometimes help them to modify their behavior because they begin to recognize that if they want to hang out with you, you're not going to tolerate that particular behavior. Now, how do we go about doing it when it's something that people are saying that really hurts and offends us? Well, the first thing I think is to acknowledge what they said or what they think. You can actually even phrase it at. So what I'm hearing you say is, that's that classic conversation back and forth of confirming what you hear them saying. But then once you've said that, like, so you're telling me I should not try for that job because I'm not going to get it anyway. Is that correct? Well, then push back, but respectfully. And here's a great sentence for that. I have a different take on that. I love that for a sentence. I have a different take on that. It's one of the ones I'm going to try to learn to use more frequently. And then explain your take on the situation. Now, they probably in most cases are not going to agree with you. They may still vehemently disagree with you. And at that point, you have to begin to limit your exposure. You have to set some boundaries. But one of the things you can do, it doesn't mean you have to cut somebody off totally. You can set a boundary on this particular topic. Okay, you know what? We've had this discussion about my job search. Oh, I don't know. Sorry, I have a hair right in my face and it's making me crazy. We've had this discussion about my job search like 12 times and we don't get anywhere. I had this with somebody on social media who we had different opinions on a topic, as often happens on social media, and she kept coming back to me to talk about it either usually through private messaging, which is good. This is another key point, go private. But I said to her finally one day, we've had this discussion multiple times. We're not going to discuss it anymore. I want to stay your friend. I enjoy, interacting with you on social media, but we are done discussing this particular topic. Now, if somebody honors that boundary, that's great. You can do that with family Christmas dinner or Thanksgiving dinner. You can say, I know we all have different political ideas, so it is off the table to discuss today. But be specific about what it is that's off the table, because people will find ways around it, particularly if they want to needle you about it. And that may be another sign of it's time to say, hey, it's good, which we talked about way early, I think the first week, about saying, okay, it's time to go now. Everyone get your coats. Then if that still doesn't pay off, if people are still causing those kind of issues, then might be time to make yourself unavailable as much as possible. Now, with family, that can be difficult, and it probably shouldn't be forever. There are family group events that probably it's better if you participate in. But learn how to protect yourself and make yourself a little bit more unavailable. And this is key. Remember why, because what often happens, it's kind of like putting on a shirt that you haven't worn in a while, and you think, why aren't I wearing this shirt? And then you put it on and it itches all day, and you go, oh, that's why I'm not wearing that shirt. That can happen with our relationships. Why haven't I hung out with so-and-so for a while? Oh, yeah, now I remember. So try to remember why and make yourself somewhat unavailable. Now, I'm going to give you one other caveat here, and that's this. If you receive the same kind of feedback from several people, particularly in different areas of your life, it may be time to seriously consider, are they right? Are they right? Am I making a big mistake here? Am I not being wise here? Is this a fault that I have that I don't want to acknowledge? Because when we're receiving that from multiple places, in multiple areas of our life, it may very well be true, and it may be time to take it under consideration as to whether they're telling us the truth. It's important to remember that stepping back does not mean you hate someone. And be careful not to express it that way in anger or nastiness. But it simply means you respect yourself. Not everyone is meant to stay as part of your life. Hey, hope you have a great day, what's left of it, and we'll see you back tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great day.